We came to the conclusion, after seeing 2,000 patients, that multiple sclerosis, migraines, Parkinson's, Lyme, and autism have similar things that we need to discuss, and especially the interruption of the subtle energy system. Somewhere back in DAN 1.0, there was a fellow named Woody McGinnis that actually had the smartest idea that came out of the whole conference era, and that was right in this area, that he said this controls a lot of the area. This is the crossroads. I mean, this is the absolute crossroads of infection and chronic disease. No one seems to be concentrating on that. Because one of the things we forget, did you know your body, your brain, emails, texts, and tweets? Your brain emails, texts, and tweets. You know, Twitter went down for 4 hours one time, and Ashton Kutcher thought his career was over. Oh, that's right, it really is. So we'll move on and say, here's what the neurotoxic brainstem is. And this is right out of some of that research. The neurotoxic brainstem is the threshold event of hypervascularity and microglia activation in Lyme and autism. That simply means there at the base of the brain, when we become neurotoxic, we are unable to regulate our bodies, especially our energy system. The first thing that happens is the immune pathways, the mTOR pathway and the P53, cause unregulated cell growth in the neurons and glia. Wow, that's a big deal. When you're overwired in your brain, you can't regulate your immune system. You can't replace your cells. The immune imbalance then allows us to have opportunistic infections, and those are the ones we are so busy fighting. In other words, your brain is so busy fighting a war it doesn't have to fight. It doesn't have enough troops to fight a different war, the one that it needs to. The diffusion of inflammation occurs from the circumventricular area. That is the epicenter, and that's the entry point of endotoxins of mercury and cadmium. We've been able to see that when we run this thing called Zyto. We also see that we get lesser gray matter in the medulla and depressed sympathetic signals, which you all are pretty smart about because of the teachings of Dr. Klinghardt, but autonomic or sympathetic signals get crossed. Primarily we have on without the off switch, and we have a permanent enlargement of these type of cells in the gut. The worst one is lesser gray matter, because I ran an x-ray and here's what it looked like. Oh, I'm sorry, that's Homer Simpson. So that's not us. But anyway, moving right along. Seriously, folks. This is just a little more detail because receptor density related to overactivity in the mTOR pathway becomes a major issue. The brain continues to overwire, has an autoimmune reaction along with oxidative stress. Here are some of the pathways that are included in that. That's a neurofibromatosis. This is a tubular sclerosis, and this is one genetic SNP that Japanese researchers have found that cause the overwiring of the brain. All of this being tested at Harvard, at Mass General, in a study for children with autism. And the big thing is increased inflammatory cytokines. We always have a brush fire in the brain. So again, right here in the brain, this is, and especially when there's discoordination, it's right here in the medulla, but this is the autoimmune crossroads along with the endocrine crossroads right here. So we believe that the nervous system, the endocrine system, and the immune system talk to each other through these cytokines all day long. The brain is email, texting, and tweeting and receiving. So when you have a brush fire in the brain, it's often very hard for the brain. You could do, how many moms have done the best job on the gut only to find out that it didn't really work? And the reason is because this is still in control. This spot right here. In Chinese medicine, I believe that's a GB20 possibly. The point of 1,000 rivers cross there in energy medicine. So when that occurs, the first thing that happens is the parasympathetic nervous system activates TH1 and the sympathetic activates 2. We become TH2 dominant in most of these cases, and that kind of creates a big hole. We all have everything. But most of you all have a good inner screen door. Our kids have been affected primarily by, still in my opinion, by vaccines and environment that allow this screen door to get a big hole in it, and then the opportunistic infections flourish. That signal travels through here and affects this area called the extracellular matrix. So mitochondria, as long as the mitochondria and other things are swimming in toxicity, and this does not cleanse through very well, there's always an imbalance in Th1 and Th2. So what we're doing here is trying to lay out again, an algorithm, a blueprint for restoring DNA function, and we're going to get to that point in just a minute. This is what an extracellular matrix looks like that has been polluted. As far as I am concerned, and as far as I know, there is probably no better way to clean it than through the use of homeotoxicology. And so that becomes maybe the first place one would start when we're working on children with autism. Again, that whole area is affected by residues and foci and things that have really been released by these types of sicknesses. I can't think of any other way to handle it other than because you could run $26,000 worth of tests. And I have to tell you all, the main reason I did this Zyto thing was for you guys, because I got tired in 2008 watching my parents go bankrupt, spending their money on, $21,000 worth of testing in 3 years, and coming in with things that just didn't actually tie anything together or take us to the tip of the sword. So I recreated my Zyto programming in order to read these very things. In homeotoxicology, sorry about that, in homeotoxicology, the main story really is progressive. I don't know why that's not staying there. Hold on. One more try. I'm not going to, yep. I know why, because it's trying to shift. That's called progressive vicariation. Homeotoxicologists believe these go down into 6 different stages, and there they are. And I do believe that it'll affect the human genome by your translation. So all of this is called endoplasmic reticulum, and denaturated proteins will eventually clog this up, causing a permanent autoimmune reaction. So the genes are transcribed, and it's really in the translation. It's silencing the RNA, not steadying the RNA. That's where the new medicines want to go. But it may be even a treatment before that, as we will soon learn. So what we're really talking about here are proteins that are being denaturated. In other words, there's a lot of roadkill on the information highway of the brain and in the body because it gets into these tissues. This translation of RNA and a malfunctioning or an aberrant protein then locates into the endoplasmic reticulum. There's something called protein uptake. And that protein uptake should occur, but those denaturated proteins stay in the endoplasmic reticulum and basically create an autoimmune issue. So how proteins and when proteins are formed matter. How proteins are degraded matters. How heat shock proteins come and save the day matters. Wave phenomena that we will be talking about here in just a few minutes is primal. Traditional Chinese medicine may call it Jing. There is a biological internet that we are dealing with, and we believe that this communication system between the brain immune loop specifically, the brain immune loop, you can look that up in psychoneuroimmunology, PNI. Microtubules are the scaffolding of the cells. They are hexagonal lattices of fine proteins called tubulins. They are of infinite length. Tubulin acts as a light pipe that constantly remake themselves, meaning as light travels through your body, they travel and fold with it. Microtubules marshal discordant energy and brings coherence. Microtubules and dendrites are the internet of the body, where the body emails, texts, and tweets. And under the right circumstances, every neuron can talk to every neuron in a kind of like a bodily Facebook. So I don't know what you're posting, but you can't be a bully there. So it's a biological internet where the body emails, texts, and tweets. So there's more to us than we believe, and this is actual light coming through that. So the work with light that we've done over the past 3 years with our cancer patients, our MS patients, have proven to be very, very effective. Again, that nervous, endocrine, and immune system, but mainly the brain immune loop. We also love this thing. We think above the unfolded protein synthesis is possibly this mTOR pathway, which overactivates the wiring of the brain and creates, again, the autoimmune reaction through something called PI3K, AKT, leading right into this overwiring of the brain again, all the way downstream to something called VEGF. Many of you already know this through our history. The breakdowns in methylation are important, but it may not be the first thing that you talk about. It really shouldn't be the first thing. Cerebrofolate antibody or methylation isn't what we should be talking about primarily. What we should be talking about is how the body energizes organizes the energy systems in order for this to work. If the body's energy systems aren't organized, we can't make methylation work. Again, how do we ask these questions? Well, in energy testing, energy testing asks the higher questions. If you ask the higher questions, you can get the higher answers. Now, Mr. Einstein, how do you feel about what we've said so far? He's not really very impressed yet. In fact, he said that I need a new hairdresser. Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Einstein. We'll continue. Again, I've mentioned briefly this thing called nutraphysicals, or actually Zyto, and that's a Zyto hand cradle in our logo there. And it takes the guesswork out of understanding where the tip of the spear is. I've been around a lot of sequential homeopaths who seem to think, doing it historically might be it, but then we're blocked profoundly by Bartonella deep in the cells, or we're blocked by something else. When we should be using and working with that, we're not. We didn't get the right answer. So we mine the data deeply. We've run over 12,000 Zytos with 2,000 people in 20 different countries. And this was all geared for children with autism. And so we hit the tip of the spear, we understand where they are, and I'm going to tell you some of the things that we look for in that. But we have done this for 5 years. I used to be on the board of Zymogen. Von Cook, who invented this, came to the meeting, and I have to tell you, I didn't know what to think about it. I was pretty sure at that time that it was crazy. And here I am, one of the 8 guys in the world who know how to do it right. Well, a lot of people know how to do it right, but I know how. I've worked with it with children more than anybody. Now, that said, I did take it to the medical board, and here was their reaction. I thought we were getting pretty good responses, but these guys just didn't think so. So that said, how does a Zyto work? A Zyto works by, basically, it's an old-fashioned lie detector test. You put your hand on this cradle, and through bioimpedance analysis and reaction in your hand, we challenge your body, and you ask, we ask, and you answer about 600 questions. Out of that 600 questions, about 60 of those are going to tell us the answer to where your problem is. So if you haven't had success organizing your treatments and understanding how they affect your child, and you want to check them out, this is how you do it. You organize and prioritize through the use of energy medicine, and specifically this Zyto that I'm about ready to show you. We've paid particular